Hi, Catherine.
Hi, how are you?
Hi. There's someone on the line called Yvette. Who's that?
Oh, that is the chair, one of the chairs from Justice for All Coalition. She works with Kristen and I.
Well, I didn't have her as a guest, so I'm not that familiar. So
Is Kristen on?
no, not yet.
Okay, maybe Kristen invited her.
Yeah.
I did ask if Yvette wanted to join also. I guess she didn't get back to me, but maybe she got back to Kristen. Yeah.
Okay. So I'm gonna wait for Kristen, I guess, one more minute, and I guess then we'll start.
Sure.
Okay.
There we go. Oh, Kristen's in the waiting room. Oh, Melanie?
Yes, I'm sorry. I'm listening.
Okay, she's actually the Yvette is actually Kristen. She's using Yvette's Zoom for Justice for All. She's using that account.
Okay.
So that is her.
Okay. Hi, is that Kirsten?
Yeah, I'm sorry. It comes up as Yvette, who's the chairperson of JFA. but-
Okay. Is she present, the chair of JFK?
No, she's not here.
Okay. So good.
But I'm a member of the executive committee, and Kathy is also on our steering and exec committee.
Okay. So the meeting will start. I'd like to say good morning and thank you to everyone for appearing so early. We're all really busy, so thank you for accommodating. So I'm Melanie Ocello, as you know, president of 344 East 28th Street Tenant Association. On the call is also my treasurer, Diane DeJesus, and she's on our NYCHA board. And we also have Louis from Fight for NYCHA, which I'm also a member of. So if you could please introduce yourselves.
Kristen, you want to go?
Sure. I'm Kristen Hackett, a member of the Justice for All Coalition, working predominantly in Western Queens. I also live here, and I'm a graduate student at the CUNY Graduate Center.
Thank you.
Hi, everyone. I'm Kathy. I'm a Queensbridge resident on Queensbridge North, and I do volunteer, advocating work with Justice for All, and that's it.
Okay, and your chair as well, Catherine?
No.
Chairperson? Oh, okay. All right, so I found out about Catherine through a resident. So if Catherine, you could explain to me, you did reach out, so thank you for that. And you have the floor.
I just wanted to reach out to you because, Sandra Gonzalez is my mother-in-law, ex-mother-in-law, and I feel like they're being taken advantage of, with the whole situation, what happened in the house, her passing out. I reviewed her lease, and it's not even a legit active lease. It's dated December 1st, but everything says Louis Sr. on it, and he's been deceased since October. and the lease still says NYCHA on it. And then there's parts that say Cornell Pace, and supposedly she can't get in touch with anyone. Nobody ever picks up the phone, and whoever's in the lobby is very mean. And, and then we had set up that meeting, last Saturday. And, whatchamacallit, she didn't tell me that I was, via Zoom. She didn't tell me that I was at 8:30, it was at 9. But I wanted to know, like, what's going on in that building, because whatchamacallit, I told her, don't do any media until, she seeks legal advice.
Right. So I just want to be clear, Catherine, because you are affiliated with Justice for All Coalition, and as a quite the only tenant association president vocal against RAD, I need to be clear on your request if it's for capacity of assisting your ex-mother-in-law, because our fight here is for all of NYCHA. It's not individual, which of course, as a TA president, I do handle that. But I can't discuss Ms. Gonzalez personally, because that's like privy information. So I'm just wondering what scope, like what level you're reaching out to us over here on, because your coalition are you working with other NYCHA residents? What have you guys done so far?
Well, I told you in the email already that I was just coming to you, for myself, because I don't know if, Justice for All, what I mean, wants to come aboard and help out. I'm like, I told you that's what I do on the side. I'm an advocate for all. I'm an advocate for all NYCHA, not just helping, my own family or like, my own neighborhood. Against RAD, I'm against the blueprint. Okay. But the thing is that, whatchamacallit, I was coming to you because the thing is that, since you're the TA president there, whatchamacallit, I kept asking Sandra, well, have you brought all this to your TA's, your president's attention? I asked Demetrius, what's going on in your building? Like, who's the management? I'm trying to help them.
Yes.
I'm trying to help them. They're opening up their door and they're letting people in. And I told them it's their right to not let anyone in. They don't have to let anyone in without a work order. And when they were doing the lead abatement, they weren't even, no one was supposed to be on the premises. No one.
Okay, but so my question is, so in your capacity as being concerned for your family member, I understand, but you did reach out to Justice Coalition for All with Kristen. So maybe if Kristen could speak on that, because I'm a little not unsure of what this meeting should come out of this, because our advocacy is, as you know, like I said, for all of NYCHA. So I'd like to see what Kristen has to say, because I understand, this is something that you're involved in.
Yeah, so Kathy and I both work with Justice for All Coalition, and we're a group of maybe 15 people, maybe a little bit more, fluctuates. Anyways, yeah, and we are advocating around repair needs over here in Western Queens, and increasingly across the city. Right now, we're also working with supporting folks at Fulton Houses. We also work with people up in Uptown Manhattan, like the Holmes Isaac Coalition and stuff like that. And so, and really there's like citywide coalitions growing to in the fight to preserve public housing. And so we're increasingly working in coalition with folks across the city. And Kathy brought this concern to our steering committee meeting, which we have on Mondays every week. Her concern about her mother-in-law and what's going on in this building. And to be honest, like I've also been following a little bit of it lately because I've been seeing your tweets and you've been like kind of reporting out. And so, and all of this is happening also like at the same time that Fulton Houses residents reached out to us in November or December. And so anyways, so I kind of thought of this meeting as like get to know you guys, hear a little bit more about what's going on in the building, and if there's anything Justice for All Coalition can do to support you guys, whether it's us independently or tapping into the citywide networks to see how we can support what's going on. And I think there is also a particular interest with Kathy about her mother-in-law. So I think it's kind of both, this kind of
Right.
personal thing. And also the last thing I'll say, I guess, is that, we know that you guys have been organizing and fighting and doing a lot of that in your building. And so we're not trying to like come in and do anything. We're really just trying to figure out if there's anything that we can do to
Right.
support you given whatever resources we have. And that was kind of,
Right.
it.
So I'll say to Catherine that as a TA leader, I'm definitely assisting Ms. Gonzalez. But as far as capacity for outside help, I'd just like to know, Kristen, like what exactly is your organization committed to and what have they actively done in this fight against RAD? Because I would like to know that before we, say, oh yeah, sure.
Yeah, that's fair. So the
Especially Fulton
organization,
houses. I'm sorry, if you could start with Fulton houses, like what have you done there?
oh yeah, sure. Well, as you probably know, like Jackie and them have been organizing since like 2018. Perhaps you guys were involved with that at some point, I think. I'm not sure what happened, but they reached out to us in November, just kind of like for a tenant meeting, trying to give us a sense of what's going on over there and if there were ways that we could help. And so obviously they're being silenced and trampled on pretty heavily. And so one of the first things we did was kind of do an assessment of what was going on, and then write a letter and send that to HUD, to the special projects, which is the overseeing body that actually can deny RAD applications. So we did that, and then I joined them at some rallies, and then there was like kind of the holiday break. And then now January, and I guess it's almost, or it is March now. We had another major rally in mid-February. What are we working on now? And now we're kind of like trying to plan out the next year. Basically, the working group report just came out. It seems like the RFP will come out pretty soon. From what we've also been in conversation with Take Root Justice, so a legal team to try and figure out when a legal strategy might be useful or might come into play, which it doesn't sound like that happens until after the application actually goes to HUD. So we have probably about a year to continue organizing. And so that's kind of the goal. Right now, we're trying to get like a little op-ed out or statement that's a response to the working group. We're planning like a block party for April. We all are also, and this might be something that you're interested in, we'd like to convene a panel or a forum or a community discussion of sorts that brings together residents who are living in converted buildings to talk about the experience as a way of sort of delegitimizing RAD as a process. And some of that came about because one tenant from Hope Gardens came and spoke at the rally in February, and just had like atrocious stories. And also I've been following some of your Twitter, and we're starting to really hear from people in these developments now about what's not happening, right? And actually that the harassment is ongoing. And so anyway, so that's mostly the game at Fulton Houses right now. It's like to continue amplifying the issue there, continue to amplify the fight against RAD citywide, with the understanding that we might have to engage a legal strategy next year. And so all of this is also kind of towards that goal of like documenting the opposition, and ensuring that there's kind of like regular and steady and clear opposition, which then becomes sort of the basis of a lawsuit challenging any RAD conversion that might happen. A lot of the work that Justice for All Coalition does though right now is here in Western Queens, and we have folks dealing with gas outages and other utility outages, as well as serious repair needs. And so We've also been pursuing a campaign to demand repairs, respect, and reparations is how we're calling it. And so we use justfix.nyc tools to submit formal letters of complaint to NYCHA. Those become the basis of a lawsuit against the local public housing management companies, not company, NYCHA, but the office. And we're working with Queens Legal Services to pursue that. And we understand that the legal strategy is like really, the city and the state are not going to hold NYCHA accountable or really charge them, but it is a way of continuing to bring attention to the issue. We're also like working with our state officials here to try to reject the blueprint. So Gianaris is the state senator over here. He's the deputy majority leader. And so in the Senate. And so we've been trying to, or we have been working with him to get a sense of like how that's moving at this through the state level, and getting him to try to help whip votes if it comes down to that, to be honest. We're also working in coalition with the Movement School, Sunrise NYC, the Residents to Preserve Public Housing, CAV, and a few other groups, I think. There's like planning and action against the blueprint for a couple weeks from now, and a series of other sort of actions related to the blueprint. And then we're also trying to get a meeting with Chuck Schumer, or actually that's like in the process of getting planned, to try to talk to him about public funding, because at a meeting with him a couple weeks ago, he made it clear that he's, you know, whether or not we trust him, he did say very clearly that he's in support of public housing and wants to find funding for public housing. And so now we're going to have a follow-up conversation to talk really about what that means. And then the last thing I'll say is I hope you guys saw, so Nydia Velazquez's bill, Senator Warren just reintroduced that to the Senate, or is planning to do that. They announced it yesterday, I think, or Thursday. Anyway, so we're hoping that that goes through, and then we are in favor of the Green New Deal for public housing as a more sustainable future for public housing residents. And we're very committed also to resident management. So we are doing community education around that right now and talking about it. And what that looks like to us is maybe resident management corporations, which are possible within Section 9. But there's also conversation around NYCHA is, let's put it honestly, is a terrorist organization, right? The amount of abuse that they levy on tenants is just ridiculous. And so we don't want public money to come through, and NYCHA maintains control of these buildings. And so there's even interest in like reforming NYCHA, making sure there's a tenant board, or the chair or CEO should be a tenant, or just doing away with NYCHA altogether. And in the context of resident management corporations, actually, the money could feasibly come directly from HUD to the local RMC. So in that case, NYCHA wouldn't need to exist. But anyway, so those are, I think, some of the range of things that we're working on. We're very much against RAD and the blueprint and privatization and anything that takes the buildings and units out of Section 9, basically. Sorry, that was, I hope that's helpful and not too much.
Okay, I hear you. And I'm glad that we have this chance to speak because, you know, there's 600,000 people living in NYCHA, and Melanie's building got converted, and the mayor plans to convert another 55,000 to 60,000 apartments, approximately 55,000. But we're concerned that you say that you have a year left to do a legal strategy. That's very concerning because, you know, we were at Fulton Houses in 2019 when there was no other group. And we've been sounding the alarm about RAD. And separate from what Fight for NYCHA was doing, Melanie, in her own way, was sounding the alarm too.
Yeah.
And we know that you are aware of how all of the NYCHA residents are kept divided. And what we need to do is unite. And unfortunately, what keeps people from working together is a different strategy and a different outlook about how important public housing is. We don't believe we have a year left. We didn't have a year left back in 2019 or 2018 when the mayor first said he was going to convert public housing in Chelsea to RAD. At the time, he was planning to demolish 2 buildings. There wasn't a year left when he made that decision. And we knew it because the way government works, as you know yourself, when you fight all these zoning fights, which is, you know, your primary purpose for existing in Queens.
Actually, it's
you
not.
don't- Okay,
The roots based and leadership of Justice for All are in the local public housing developments. And so
Okay.
we
I just
fight
want to give, I
public
would
and
like,
private.
Kristen, I would just like to give Louis his chance to speak, and then you can comment at the end, please.
okay, because as you know, with anything that relates to land use, once the process begins, it's very hard to stop it. And we know that from so much experience with ULURP. It's almost a miracle to stop a ULURP application or any rezoning where there's money to be made by the private sector. So we don't believe that we have a year left at any point. And as a matter of fact, you know, we have a lawyer and he's filed a letter brief in US District Court. And we had to file this brief because NYCHA has admitted that they're on the verge of ending all Section 9 housing. And so if we're going to work together, I think we need to be clear about what is the threat that's facing public housing residents. The threat is privatization. People wouldn't be passing out in their apartments if the privatization wasn't going through. Number one. Number two, if you looked at these leases, they are horrible. Our number one goal should be to stop the damage that those leases do to people. Because Diane is on this call, she can tell you how she now faces, you know, detrimental aspects. And we're talking about money, we're talking about financial aspects. There's financial damage that these leases do. So the priority should be to stop RAD, and our attitude shouldn't be, we have a year left to maybe think about what to do about it.
I think you're misunderstanding what I said.
No, I think it was very clear. You said that Take Root
No.
Justice has a year to give you, you know, an opinion about when to start a legal strategy.
Well, you can go ahead and then I'll clarify after, because that's not what I meant.
Okay. And then it's important to note that there's 600,000, there's up to 600,000 people living in NYCHA. And I think it's more than insulting to say that NYCHA is a terrorist organization and it needs to be defunded because of how it treats people. It is true that NYCHA mistreats people, but it's not fair to say, let's get rid of it so that 600,000 more people get put into situations where they have bad leases, because it's not in anyone's strategy to fix or to save NYCHA. And I don't know, I don't live in NYCHA, but I would like to hear how other NYCHA residents believe that, you know, the answer to save them is to end the thing that gives housing to 600,000 people. And going back to the lawsuit that's now in federal court, this cannot be, if you don't know what's going, I'll forward you the legal briefs after we're done. But as you know, I'm not allowed to send anything to the citywide People's Land Use Alliance. So maybe I'll ask Melanie to do it. We will forward you the legal briefs filed in the bias case, where NYCHA admits that they're trying to end all their obligations to NYCHA residents upon RAD conversion.
Yeah.
And it gets worse than that because they are going to use a blueprint for as you know, as a pretext to do the same thing. And that's imminent. NYCHA has not denied that that's an imminent threat facing all public housing residents right now. So when you say that you would like to see resident management corporations being offered to Section 9 residents, that's not going to happen because the mayor is about to end all Section 9. So if you want to try to work together, I think it would help everybody if we looked at what was the real truth of what is existing around us and agree to what is the political and legal landscape that we actually face right in front of us. And if you are really doing work about RAD and stopping RAD and the blueprint, you would know what NYCHA is telling a US federal court district judge about what their plans are. And you would know how the bias plaintiffs in the mold class action tort lawsuit, how they are threatened now by RAD and blueprint. And you would know how Melanie, as a Section 8 resident, who was not Section 9, how her rights and her civil rights and her economic interests were ruined by RAD, even though she was already a pre-existing Section 8 resident. So I'd like to hear you talk about how come you don't even know what's going on in the bias case.
Okay, so I don't really understand this line of discussion, to be honest. And Louis, this is kind of the problem always. So Justice for All Coalition is we're a humble group of people who are trying to preserve public housing as Section 9. And we are doing the best that we can in that endeavor. And that's supporting tenants locally. And many of the members of our coalition are also living in public housing here. And when our focus has also been on community education, right? And making sure folks know about these plans and know about a lot of the other development deals that have been targeting Western Queens, like Sunnyside Yards and the BQX. And so,
but that's not NYCHA.
Huh?
That's not NYCHA.
Things are all interrelated. When we look at how public money is being allocated, right, and how governance structures operate and how that separates NYCHA out in a lot of ways from a lot of public benefits that come to other tenants in this city. What I will say about I can respond to some of the things, and then if you want to ask some direct questions, that's fine. So first of all, the year two legal strategy. So our hope at Fulton Houses is obviously to stop this as soon as possible and to delegitimize the plan that the working group has put out, and to stop RAD at that development, and as a way of arguing that RAD, amplifying the call to stop RAD across the city and across the country, right? Our commitment is to keeping Section 9. The reason why the legal strategy can't be engaged until next year, and this is through conversations with lawyers, is because it has to happen after the determination is made. Until then, all you can do is sort of politically organize and try to reach out to elected officials and try to get the working group to rescind that plan. And so that's kind of the strategy that we're doing there. But also all of that political organizing right now over the next year becomes kind of the basis of the evidence in the lawsuit in the future as well. In terms of getting rid of NYCHA, so this is a call actually that is coming from tenants that I work with through the coalition, the citywide coalitions, I mean. And so that's not something that I'm just deciding. And actually that's how Justice for All Coalition works anyways. We are very tenant based and from that ground up. And then I, as a graduate student, do a lot of policy analysis and writing on that front. But anyways, and you can get rid of NYCHA and still keep the building Section 9. And that's actually where resident management corporations can come in. And resident management corporations are possible under Section 9 and under public housing.
Okay, I agree, but where's the money going to come from? And how long do you think you still have to make these resident management corporations happen?
I just want to interject and say that I did do a petition for us to try an RMC, went nowhere. Working with elected officials went nowhere. The working group, as far as I'm concerned, is a farce. So all of the steps that you're talking about, and I'm not trying to be offensive, we've done. They're not leading anywhere. Petitions don't work. A block party doesn't work. Informing residents is an ongoing process. But the fight that we're having here is to unite all NYCHA. because it's not just Fulton, it's not just 344, it's not just individual. If we can't unite as all of us, I can't think of the word at the moment, if we don't all unite, we're not going to win based on individual fights. So I'm just saying we've already done that. We've been in conversation with Vasquez's office. We're filing petitions in court. We need action. Like, I'm just saying that these things that you're doing, they're not going to go anywhere.
So-
Well, I hear you. I think so. Through these, like this citywide coalition, this is that the ambition of that group actually is to bring all of NYCHA together. And what the group has
Okay,
been
that
doing has
cannot be
been
true, because look at
No
how
one's
we
reached
got
out to
recruited.
us.
It's
we're
not
touching
true.
base with you right now.
But this has been like 2
Okay,
years. This has been 2 years.
Okay,
Yeah,
so
the
we're here for
coalition really
some-
kind of like came together. I think there was a lot of quieting during COVID. I think people rescinded back into their own communities and into what was going on because that was a whirlwind. What this like these citywide groups came together really like once the blueprint was announced, there was kind of a coalescing. So and now it's kind of building over this year, and there is a direct
No, I'm
action
sorry.
plan.
Look, I just want to hear what Louis has to say. I'm sorry.
Okay, so why did it take the blueprint for people to realize that there was a threat at NYCHA? And why would, you know, I knew there was a threat the minute the federal officials began their investigation. That was, I believe, in 2016 or 2017. It was clear that there was a problem at NYCHA, and it should have been foreseen that the tenants were suffering. It didn't take any kind of privatization. Privatization was a byproduct of all the suffering that had already been existing for like years and years and years. And to say that just because the blueprint came out, that all of NYCHA was under threat. The mayor had threatened, and let's be clear and honest. It's the mayor. He decided to bring RAD here. And when he made that announcement, he said 62,000 apartments were going to be put under RAD. That should have been a big signal alone that NYCHA was under threat. And it seems like I'm glad that other people are now getting on board many years later. But come on, the threat existed long before the blueprint.
Yeah, that's true. I don't deny that. I don't really know how you want me to respond to that though. Like,
well, I'd like to
this is where we
know,
are right now, and this is what we're trying to do right now.
Okay, I hear you.
So that's where we're at with it, you know.
I'm glad that you're trying to do your part, but you don't have to wait for the RFP to drop at Fulton for you to develop a legal strategy. If you're saying you need to wait for some kind of determination or implementation before you get involved, why don't you pick Harlem River 1 or Harlem River 2, which is on the verge of being funded now? The determination was already made there. If you want to say Fulton, why don't you pick a development that's already been converted and challenge the determination that went there?
Well, to be honest, like, I mean, we're a small group of volunteers, and so we do what we can, like, and a lot of it is about like who gets in touch with us or who we reach out to, you know, like we don't know everybody in public housing. I don't know folks at Harlem River right now, but would be happy to meet them, but like, I don't know them. So we're not pursuing any kind of legal strategy there because that's not a building where we're like positioned right now or where we're working.
Right. So, okay. So
that's all. Like,
okay. So when we got involved at Fulton Houses, that wasn't the first development we went to. We were in Brooklyn. And then when we found out a problem happened at Fulton, we went there. Then we learned about Warren Street houses. So when there was a problem there, we got invited, we went over there and spoke. When I heard about Melanie's building going under, I went there. You're supposed to go to where people are in need. And if you're here to do this work to help people, and it's like one time, at 1 minute, you're saying that you're doing graduate work. And then the next time you're saying you don't know where the problem is. The problem is in the news. If you want to know where the developments have been converted, it's in the news. None of this information is secret. none of this.
What do you hope to achieve by this conversation? That's what I want to know, because right now I feel honestly like you're just trying to attack and delegitimize me or Justice for All or whatever. And I don't really understand like what the point of that line of questioning is.
Okay, I don't think I'm trying to delegitimize you. I said in this call, and I've been very clear, that in order for us to win, we need to unite. That's what Melanie has said. And I made it very clear also, in order for us to work together, we need to be united about what is the actual truth. Where is the threat that is facing NYCHA? Where is the threat?
We're
And
in a
if you-
position, I'm sorry, Louis.
And last thing I want to say is, you're here saying you want to help Fulton. The only way to help Fulton is to stop the RFP. You have to stop the process. Isn't that what you did with Amazon? Isn't that what you did with the BQX? You stopped the process. You can't wait for it to go forward and then think you can stop it. And the only way to stop the RFP at Fulton would be to go to Harlem River 1 or Harlem River 2, get involved over there, file your lawsuit over there so that all the RFPs stop. If you are committed to a process that you challenge RAD in a legal sense, after determinations are made, it would seem to me that you would go to public housing developments where that determination has already been made, and not wait for the damage to happen, because once the RFP drops, you're done. There is no way to stop it. You have to stop it before. And the only reason I'm talking this way is because we need to be united about how we work together and what the strategy is that will actually win. I don't mean to threaten you. I'm not threatening you, and I'm not trying to intimidate you or attack you. I'm just speaking about, from experience, what I know works and what will not work. And I'm hoping that we can find some kind of commonality or a shared vision about how we can work together.
I just wanted to say that what's very obvious is the attack on individual developments and individual TA presidents, right? They're basically coming in, doing this RAD project, different developers, different elected officials, but the same process. So our goal is to unite all of NYCHA, not just specific ones. There's no way we could help Catherine's mother-in-law. Like the individual cases, it's going to be hard to fight if we can't fight them on the higher, broader spectrum. So, you know, Kristen, could you go to Harlem River 1 and Harlem River 2 and implement there? I mean, like, this has to be a united effort before the RFP, because now I'm in a reactionary position where I can only react. And, you know, if this could have been stopped before, and I believe that's the gist of what we're trying to get everybody to understand, because otherwise we're just sitting back and we're being taken over when you do have the power to unite everybody.
Well, we don't have the power to unite everybody. What we're
collectively, all of us collectively is what I mean.
Yeah. I mean, so this is what I was going to say before, is that the citywide coalition, like of multiple groups beyond Justice for All, but we work with them, have been doing tenant power mapping across all of the developments to identify tenant leaders in every single development and to try to work through those networks to coordinate and organize. I'm a little bit peripheral to that because I have time for Justice for All Coalition, really, and the work that we're doing. And we have a lot on our plate. And I mean, I think some of that, like, can I personally go to Harlem River? No, I can't. I'm already overextended. But if there's tenants there who want to have a tenant meeting and want some support or to discuss strategies or something, that's kind of like where we come in. And I think actually there are some things that you guys could do at your development specifically. I mean, that might help. I don't know. It's not a long-term strategy, but it would be a short-term strategy, which is kind of starting these letters of complaint and moving towards a lawsuit against the new private managers. But yeah, I mean, we're all volunteers, and everybody that works with Justice for All Coalition also works full time or has to secure their means otherwise. So we're not paid organizers. So we can't be everywhere. But working in these citywide coalitions and trying to develop networks, like including this call today, is how we're able to try to support and do things.
Right, but I mean, don't for one second think we did not try to obtain legal assistance. You know, so some of the legal aid, they don't have our best interest at heart. So in this climate, you know, you have to put that into consideration. And I'm just saying, in the same respect that we have this Zoom, we can do a Zoom with Harlem River 1, Harlem River 2. You know, I think that could be easy. We could easily, you know, but if we don't work collectively and everybody has separate agendas, and you know, it's just not, there's no power in that. And I'm just saying, like, you know, we're in a reactionary position and we could possibly prevent that from the other developments.
Yeah.
Can I just say something real quick? You had mentioned saying that you can't help my mother-in-law. Melanie, you can help my mother.
Saying, no, pardon one second. I'm just saying, I used her as an example, but I'm saying we're in a reactionary position. So I have 100 cases of what's happened to your mom going on. It's chaotic here every day. So I'm reactionary, trying to put out the fires and to guide people and of that nature. But the bigger picture that I'm trying to sound the bell for is so this doesn't happen to 600,000 other people. It's bigger.
I understand. No, I totally understand that. But the thing is that, like, you know, right now she's in, you know, your building, you're the president. And what I wanted to bring to your attention, because, you know, since her husband died, he was the only actual, you can say, functioning person that had an actual functioning mentality.
Right. But I did have an attorney that and I asked her to come to the Zoom and speak to. So, and I just saw her yesterday and the day before. So we're working, you know, on that. But there's other broader issues with her case, you know, and so she wanted.
It's not real. See, the thing is that you're not letting me finish, Melanie. What I wanted to bring to your attention is that she is a tenant, okay, along with Demetrius. He's vice president, and I asked him.
He's not vice president. He's a voluntary member of our board.
Okay, he told me that he was vice president.
He's
but
not.
The thing is that they do not know any of their laws. And I was like, well, is your TA president at least letting you know your basic laws?
Absolutely.
And they just look at me like, no. And I'm like, okay, this is why I wanted a meeting with you, because I spoke with your boss, Danny Barber, the chairman.
Danny Barber is not my boss. He's the CCOP president, but I have never had a conversation with him, just to be clear.
But the thing is that he gave me some knowledge that all presidents that converted from NYCHA to RAD still are still under him and still need to work with the private management. So, I mean, you know, and I've been working for a civil law firm for over 10 years. I've been there 15 years. And I'm very aware of the Baez lawsuit, okay? I'm an asthmatic tenant, but the decree has been revised throughout the years, okay? I'm going through my own mold situation, okay? When I lived across the street, in the old decree, they had a company come and test the levels. I had over 16,000 levels. They had to remove me and my children and my service dog. See, this is what I mean. When they knocked on Sandra's door, this is why I mean, if the TA president let their tenants know, not just my mother-in-law, every single tenant in that building, their rights. No one is to enter without a work order. They need to get ID from these companies because Cornell Pace is I did my own work and they are illegally hiring guys off the streets and doing the jobs.
It's on my Twitter.
Another thing is that the lead abatement that happens in my mother-in-law's apartment, okay, they were supposed to be removed. They were supposed to be removed into another apartment while their apartment got abated and remediated and then let back in. This is not what Greg Russ is saying on his blueprint webinars, okay? There was just one yesterday, okay? And everybody in that building, okay, and needs to know their basic rights.
And they do. I don't excuse me for 1 second, but I don't want you to insinuate in any way that I'm not informing my residents. I'm here, that we've had resident meetings. They've been informed since 2019 when I was vice president and now as president. So I'm just saying, I hope you're not insinuating that I haven't advised residents of their rights. Diane, as our treasurer, can attest to all the work door flyering, Zoom meetings that we do here. So what you would have to
I'm not saying that you didn't.
I just want you to understand. I want you to understand how the RAD manager Cornell Pace operated here. Is that they completely omitted me from anything that they're doing here. So I've been in an ongoing battle with my attorney to get them to give us at least 1 year's notice of what repairs that are coming here. We had no idea, and that's how they operate.
They're supposed to work with you. That's why I said Danny Barber,
Absolutely.
the chairman, he
Absolutely.
said tenant presidents that are converting over to RAD, the NYCHA tenant presidents, they are 100% supposed to work with the management company, and the management company knows that.
They're supposed to is the key word. There's a lot of things that they are supposed to be doing, and maybe Diane could speak up and explain to you how we stopped and we caught them doing work that they were not properly protecting residents.
I saw the videos. I saw the videos.
You know, we're playing, like I said, we're in a reactionary position. Our attorney knows that they're not communicating with us. He has sent a letter to Cornell Pace. But the thing is, while it's happening here and we're trying to protect residents, we're sounding the alarm bell to all of NYCHA in every single borough, because now we're reactionary and I'm running around knocking on people's doors. The whole line of the apartments that on the E line, knocking on their doors. Did they do any repairs? We handed out civil complaint forms and said, your rights have been violated. This is what you need to do as soon as we found out. I mean, this is what we're reactionary. I would never allow anything like that to happen. But again, I was omitted from conversations about COVID, what's going to happen with renovations here during COVID. So here we are. And this is what they're going to do in every NYCHA development. This is going to be Fulton in a couple of months, maybe 6 months to a year. This is going to be Harlem River 1. This is going to be this is going to be everybody. So everyone's going to be running around suffering. So we're trying to say collectively, regardless of agendas or political affiliations, we should come together to fight this. We would have a bigger ground and a bigger, a huge voice to fight Sandra's case. Right now, it's minute, you know, on the scheme, because Greg Russ is just towering over everybody. He's on Spectrum, he's all over the place. We could barely get media. Tried op-eds, tried Spectrum One, Lisa Evers, Monica Morales. You know, everyone seems to be not interested, or they have other affiliations or aspirations, and you know, this is, I don't know, are their hands in the pot? I don't know. But so this, like I said, you know, we need to come together and unite. That, I mean, you know, yeah. I'm not the boss here.
I just want to add, you know, Fight for NYCHA, we have no funding. We're not even incorporated as a nonprofit. You know, our little GoFundMe hasn't even raised, I don't think, $300 since we started it 2 years ago. We don't have the benefit of being organized with, you know, Movement School or a Sunrise Movement, where they do have, you know, significant nonprofit funding, where they have lawyers. So, you know, if you want to try to help NYCHA, then you can lean on your partners. Find someone who can hire an attorney or use one of their own staff attorneys and go into Harlem River 1 or Harlem River 2. You're the people with the money. You know, we're lucky that we have a civil rights attorney. He's done a lot of work to help Melanie. You know, all these issues that you're raising about her building, that they are doing construction without providing notice, he's written to the Cornell Pace. He's let them know.
That's right.
Besides Melanie being in contact with Greg Russ, the lawyer has been in contact with Greg Russ. This was, I think, prior to the conversion or right after the conversion.
Both.
So all this stuff has been happening. And I'm sorry what happened to your, you know, to your family, and what's happening all over NYCHA is bad. But unless we work together, none of this is gonna stop. And, you know, I'm glad that we're having this conversation so it can be clear that, you know, that what little that we've been able to do has been as a result of, you know, we've been fortunate enough. It's like a miracle. I don't know. It's a miracle from God that we have a civil rights attorney helping us for free, but we have no resources. So,
Diane,
you all have access to GNRs, you have access to Schumer, maybe ask them for help.
Yeah, we
I just
are.
wanted to make a note that Diane doesn't have audio, I believe, and she asked me to note to the group that when we were just in the process of signing leases, they didn't even give us translated versions of the lease for our Spanish-speaking or Chinese-speaking residents, and I had asked for that. I had, as a matter of fact, did a protest, don't sign the lease, because of that, and because we couldn't retain a proper attorney to review the lease. When I did retain legal services, they basically didn't help. They just said, oh, we feel like asking our residents not to wash their windows is a violation. They were not in support of our best interests, and it's just, we've done what we can in our capacity. And if we don't have broader support with other alliances, like Louis said, we don't even have funding. We have nothing. So we have to work collectively because it's not going to stop. I tried to stop RAD from coming here since 2019. This is 2021. It's bigger than me. It's bigger than us. So we have to unite and get bigger than them.
100%. Yeah. And I think, and I want to make sure that, so the citywide coalition that I'm describing is not the people's citywide land use thing, actually, at all.
Yeah.
That's the group I'm not talking about them. I'm talking about groups that are specifically committed to preserving public housing.
Which are those groups?
CAV, Movement School, Residents to Preserve Public Housing. Sunrise NYC is also providing resources, like you said.
They've never reached out to me.
Right. I didn't say that they had provided resources. I'm asking them to provide resources because where are they in the fight for RAD? Why aren't they on this? I've
never heard of them. I mean, I've heard of their coalitions, but I've never heard of them.
You've never heard of who?
I've never heard of the coalitions reaching out to help NYCHA residents, at least not here in Manhattan.
Well, these are tenant-based coalitions, a lot of them. Like the Residents to Preserve Public Housing are just a group of residents from the Bronx who came together and meet every Sunday. And a lot of the ways that we've been finding Justice for All Coalition, people don't reach out to us necessarily either, but we find them and have these kinds of conversations like we're having with you all. And then folks get looped in that way. So it's really, and I think to your point, like Melanie, that this is it needs all of us, but also the challenge of bringing everybody together is kind of what we're talking about right now, right? Why are we doing this? Why aren't we doing that? Because it's this is how it's coming together. It's a big problem that we're trying to coalesce around. And there's an organizing challenge there.
Can I
but
chime
it is
in
starting to happen now. Sorry, go ahead, Kathy.
I mean, for an idea, and this is just an idea, because all of the groups that are mentioned are small. They have small roots, and like Melanie said, and like Louis said, we all need to come together. I'm all for that. But like Kristen said, the capacity of each group. Now, I think if we put all our brains and ideas and voices together, we have 5 boroughs. Maybe there can be some group scouting, you know what I mean? Where we have some groups working for doing advocating and volunteer and trying to stop RAD in Manhattan, and then Brooklyn, and then, Queens, and you know what I mean? And then all the groups come together twice a month or however you want to coordinate it, and be like, all right, well, bam, this is what's happening in Manhattan. All right, bam, this is what's happening in Queens. You know what I mean? And I think that would be a good idea to unite all NYCHA, because just your one group, just Justice for All, and all the other groups that Kristen has mentioned, it's too much. The capacity is too much. And I honestly think that, this is being done deliberately, you know what I mean? So people can just give up, but we cannot give up. We cannot give up, because everyone is going to be affected by this, not just, working class, not just disability, not just welfare. Literally everyone in NYCHA is going to be affected by this. And I think maybe that's a good starting point if you want to take that into consideration, you know what I mean? Just doing group outreach in each borough and asking them to come aboard. And maybe that's a good starting point.
Okay. I'm gonna send Melanie all of the legal documents in the Baez case, and I'm gonna ask Melanie to forward that to the citywide.
I already know about the Baez case.
Okay.
I've been in contact with one of the lead attorneys, because one of my attorneys had referred me to him when I used to live across the street in my old apartment. So I've been in touch with Greg. That's one of the lead attorneys. And he's even told me, whatchamacallit, as long as you're under a NYCHA lease, those lawsuits, not just the Baez, but all different types of NYCHA lawsuits will still hold up in court. But once you go RAD, once you go Blueprint, once you go PACT, whatever the privatization program is, those lawsuits are void. And what you would have to do is recreate those lawsuits with the new management. That's
Okay.
what needs to be done.
Okay, well, Louis, go ahead. He was just going to say we're going to forward the documents we filed. As far as I know, we're the only development that has.
Right. I want to forward the documents, not to educate people so much on the Baez case, because I do believe many NYCHA residents, and particularly the NYCHA resident leaders that you are doing power mapping of, I'm sure they are very aware about the Baez case. I'm talking about forwarding the documents that show that NYCHA is imminently considering abandoning all of their obligations to all public housing residents based on RAD, PAC conversion and the blueprint. And as I said before, I want to stress again, it's important that if we're going to work together, that we recognize what is the imminent threat. What is the imminent threat that NYCHA residents face? In order for us to work together, we have to agree on what is actually happening. And I don't believe we have a year left. And as much as I'm grateful that we have a civil rights attorney working with us, I'm glad that he shares the same sense of urgency. And I think it's in order for there to be success, we have to agree on what we're doing. So I'm going to forward those documents to Melanie, and I'm going to put a little preface and ask her to forward it on to the Citywide Planning People's Land Use Alliance, since they don't allow me to send any email now.
No problem, I'll do that.
After I questioned the wisdom of starting a petition to save Fulton houses this late in the process, but I'll send those documents to Melanie and I'll ask her to forward them on.
We didn't just start a petition, Louis. Like the tenants did a petition in 2019. Like you misconstrued a lot of anything I said in that email.
Okay, so if I may, I'm just going to conclude. It's 9:30 at this time. I'd like to thank everybody for this meeting, and we have each other's emails and contacts, and we can keep in touch. And I thank you all, and I hope we all, can work together.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Thank you.
Bye, guys.
Bye.